Today, we're reacting to Nintendo's latest partner direct showcase. Could this PR blunder actually hurt Switch 2 sales? Plus, the AMD CEO hinted that Microsoft's next-gen Xbox console could launch in 2027. Is that real or just wishful thinking? And Blizzard just dropped Overwatch's biggest update ever. What do we really think about this massive overhaul? Stick around for all that and more. Welcome, friends, to Good Playing With You, your weekly gaming news roundup. I'm Dan Whitehill, and as always, I'm joined by my cohort in crime, Matt Lord.
Hey, how's it going?
And we've got a packed show today, but before we dive in, we're only 124 subscribers away from our goal. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump into the headlines of the week. First up, let's talk Nintendo's latest Direct, because it was a dumpster fire. Man, it was a huge disappointment this week. This thing opened up with already announced niche titles and it never really recovered after that. We got stuff like Valheim coming to Switch 2, a 5-year-old PC game, a free upgrade for Hollow Knight, multiple soccer games, visual novel sequels, and anime-adjacent RPGs like Tokyo Xanadu and Digimon Story Time Stranger. Now, look, I don't mean to harsh on your buzz because I know that there are going to be some people that are like, I freaking love Tokyo Xanadu, and I respect that. But it didn't need to be in this showcase, is my point. We saw ports, cross-platform stuff we already knew about, and very little in the way of surprises. No release dates, no surprises, no interesting moments whatsoever. It felt less like a showcase and more like Nintendo proving the Switch 1 is still technically alive. And the weirdest twist of this whole thing, to be honest with you, was the biggest, most recognizable games shown at the end of the Direct were all Xbox games. This was the Xbox Nintendo Direct.
I couldn't believe that one. I couldn't believe that finale. I thought that was totally criminal.
Okay, hold on. Let's discuss it 1 second. But we're talking Fallout 4, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and Indiana Jones The Great Circle ending this Nintendo Direct. When the hype moment of your Nintendo presentation is, hey, here's some Microsoft-owned games, that kind of says everything you need to know about the state of Switch and the Switch 2 right now. Yes, I totally get it. This was a partner showcase. No first-party Nintendo games were ever promised. But that's exactly why it needed a killer third-party reveal there at the end, and it didn't get one. It didn't get anything close. It got old games all the way throughout. 8 months into the Switch 2's life cycle, Mario hasn't been mentioned, there's no news on Zelda, and no clear reason for most people to feel excited and upgrade. So what's going on here? Lord, we got to talk about this. Is this just Nintendo? Yeah. Is this just Nintendo pacing itself, saving the real stuff for later this year? Or is this Direct a genuine red flag that Switch 2 doesn't have a strong lineup waiting in the wings?
Wow. I mean, I watched this Direct. I took some specific time out of the day to pull it up, get it queued, watch it from the rip, and I was like, I'm about to get blown away. Like, this is what we've been waiting for. I mean, we're going to get something very, jaw-dropping. And my jaw dropped to the floor for all the wrong reasons. Let's put it that way. When I saw Tokyo Scramble, when I saw that dinosaur game that just looked cockamamie, like just all the actions were all disjointed. Don't even get me started on the graphics were just like completely lacking in general, but it just looked, the perfect word, passionless. And you know how I feel about that. I mean, a lot of this stuff in here was passionless, but when I saw Tokyo Scramble, I thought, wow, like we are really missing the mark here. And just in general, the games, I mean, we already talked about it, like the Bethesda close. I really could not believe we were looking at a Fallout 4 reveal at all. I was like, this really is this is the state of the Switch 2. And I think there's just not a lot to look forward to answer your question. I don't think there's a lot of games that they have prepped waiting for this thing. I don't know if it goes back to, remember we talked about how Nintendo was being very selective about their dev kits. Like, do people not have a dev kit to make games on this system? Like, what is actually going on here where it's just, there's just nothing to look forward to. And in this case, if I were to watch that and like if that was going to be whether or not I got a Switch 2, I would say, no, no way, Jose. I would be totally. I was already out of there. And I'm like, man, if I had a Switch 2, I would have been just like pissed. That's all I say.
Well,
Like that
I
was
gotta
it.
agree. That's exactly how I feel. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I am pissed. I'm pissed at myself actually for buying this Switch 2. I finally played Metroid. It was a bummer. There's really nothing for this system. There's no reason whatsoever to upgrade. All of these games are on Switch 1. They look like they're on Nintendo 64, but they're on Switch 1. This thing is a joke at this point for real gamers. And I look, they're casuals, they're children, and maybe that's what this is aimed for because it clearly isn't aimed for me. They have no real games. Now, I have heard rumblings that like late February, maybe March, there will be an actual proper direct. And I have heard the term Mario thrown around a bit. So, man, that sure makes me helpful. But this thing was literally a PR nightmare for them. I truly think this could impact their sales, especially if hardcore gamers are going to be looking at this. Sometimes you hear the phrase, it could have been an email. With this one, it shouldn't have even been an email. It was so much bullshit. It was a waste of my time, and I want my time back. That's so fucking rude for them to put out such shit.
Yeah, fully an hour-long show at 6 a.m.? Are you kidding me? I
I
mean,
know.
that you're waking up at 6 a.m. for that. And you mentioned, okay, I thought the Switch 2 was for adults. That's what I thought it was. I thought they had the whole new redesign and it looked sexy. It looked sleek. I was like, oh, they're leaning into like some mouse, you know, that gimmick, which in my mind feels a little more adult. But everything they've put out on the system, I'm like, this is for babies or something. Like, I must have got it all wrong. Like, you so do not need a Switch 2 at this point. If you have a Switch 1, you're set. Like, I
Yeah.
don't
You
see
can
any
enjoy all the shovelware that they showed off here at this
exact
presentation.
exactly. Okay, maybe you won't play Final Fantasy Rebirth on your Switch, but guess what? Like, chances are you probably already have that on your PS5 or PC at this point. It's like you're it's such a strange situation. I agree with you. I don't think this is going to do any good for their sales. I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Whoa, they need to take a step back and like try to figure out their direction." And my question for you is like what can they do at this point to kind of like right the ship? Because I feel like right now Nintendo is going in a completely like incorrect direction. Like what can they do at this point, Dan?
I agree. That is a great question. I think we have a number of factors here. One, we saw the sales start to dip in the last quarter, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about in a minute. But
Mhm.
so we know that they are their momentum from launch is flagging, which for gamers has got to be a good sign because they probably were waiting for the sales to drop off, and that's when this is crap. This is when I'm going to get optimistic on you, and I don't mean to, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is the Nintendo playbook. They just wanted to get those initial sales, and now that it's going to drop off, they're going to regain momentum in the next February or March with the Mario. I know it's going to be the Mario. They're going to line it up with the movie. That's how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to put out your game during the movie, and the movie's going to be this summer, and the game's going to be this summer, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be Super Mario Galaxy 3, and I'm going to be okay, kidding. It won't be. It'll be probably Odyssey 2, but I think they'll finally get their shit together this summer, and that's when people will be like, "Oh, okay," and then I'll be like, "Okay, where I'm happy now." Right now, not so happy, but I do see potentially, like, especially, thank God, the sales have started to dip
Yeah.
because that's the only thing that's going to motivate them to actually release some games. I think we're up to like what 3 or 4 games now. Like it's so
Yeah. I
it
think,
is
yeah,
a
maybe
disaster.
two. Or I don't know. Like, it's Donkey Kong and Mario Kart. What's the other one?
And Metroid. Uh,
But oh yeah. Well,
we do have to give a shout out to our friend of the pod, Chad, and say the Square Enix game, The Adventures of Elliot the Millennium Tales, that's out this June, sure looked fantastic.
yes,
I
I
don't
will
want to,
say.
yeah, that was the one game that I was like, okay,
Mhm.
this,
Yeah.
there's a little something
No,
here.
I gotta say, I saw that and I was like, okay, that I mean, this game, we've already seen it, but I gotta say, I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, we've seen everything there. I know we're gonna
I
have to
know.
beg Chad to come hang out with us in June and tell us about his game. But anyway, speaking of everything we've already seen before, I hate to say this. I don't want to like harsh anyone's buzz, and this is like it's just look, Resident Evil was shown off again, and I know that like it's coming out. But how many trailers? I even see it behind you. I'm like, oh my
I
God,
know.
Resident Evil is ever. I'm so ready for this game to come out. Yeah, I want to play it, but at the same time, it's been in every showcase. It's been everywhere. And it was funny because in the comments, they were really making fun of Resident Evil in this showcase because they didn't want to show any blood. So they made Leon miss every attack. And
I noticed.
people totally noticed and were howling about that.
Yeah, like
Oh,
the sniper miss, like the pistol miss, like even the chainsaw whiff.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, just want to say like all that PR for Resident Evil Requiem is like it's making me like I don't know what I feel like over PR and over
Yeah.
commercializing makes me like a little bit like, is this game gonna be a bit of a mess? And I
Yeah.
kind of feel like we've seen it everywhere. And I'm like, okay, I think we could be in for not the best surprises with that game, unfortunately. Because in my opinion, I mean, that's been past showcases, game of the showcase. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little bit like it might not be what we think it's gonna be.
I think it's just more of the same.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I just
I hope
don't I
so.
don't it's like my expectations are, pretty mid or whatever. And I got to say my expectations going into this Nintendo showcase, knowing it was a partner direct, were on the ground. They were already low. But the reality
Yeah.
was so subterranean and underground that it's like, whoa, that is just how can you disappoint me
Wow.
when I don't even have my hopes up? That is
You
impressive.
you got
Very
smacked with the
impressive.
subterranean. I did
Yes.
not think that was gonna happen. Well, I went in thinking, okay, this it could be a good showcase considering they need to pull something out that we
Yeah.
haven't seen. And so my expectations were maybe a little higher, and I thought I was gonna be like, I was like, I'm gonna try to like come in here real positive. And then I saw that Tokyo Scramble game, and I thought, what are we doing, Nintendo? Like, what? This is what you're gonna show? Is you're leading with this? Like,
I know.
unbelievable stuff out of their camp right now.
But we did like didn't you say there was a story we had about their sales and stuff, and you had
Yes.
mentioned that.
Yeah,
What was
so
that one?
interesting. Yeah. So Nintendo acknowledges Switch 2 sales have been slightly weaker than expected outside Japan. This is from IGN's Todd Phillips. Speaking to shareholders this week, Nintendo president Funtaro Furukawa acknowledged that overseas sales were slightly weaker than our expectations. Still, in an investor meeting following the release of this week's latest financial earnings, Nintendo shareholders repeatedly questioned the company on its Western sales shortfall, even as the Switch 2 performs or overperforms in its homeland of Japan. So, Dan, let's just, if they're going to be even addressing this, how bad does this seem? Because in my mind, they wouldn't even, if it's actually sort of a weak sales situation, they would just kind of brush it off. Like, what are we talking about here? Do you think it could be chalked up to sort of these directs, lack of games? Like, what do you think?
100% that and the price as well. So
That's a
what
good
was
point.
interesting because I also read a story and I just want to add on to what you were saying right there is
Yeah.
that Sony basically beat Nintendo Switch 2 with the PS5 last quarter. So Sony did for the holidays set its price lower and did some discounting to like $400 and Nintendo Switch didn't. It was still $500 and Sony was able to sell 8 million consoles versus Switch 2 selling 7 million consoles. So look, they're not off by too much, but it clearly shows if this 5 or 6 year old system is able to beat this brand new system, price does matter. People are price sensitive because I'm going to be honest with you, Sony doesn't have any really great games either.
Yeah.
So, they're in the same boat here. It shows, I think, that the consumer is starting to wake up. Look, we all love Nintendo, but there are no games to play on it, especially in the West. And, Metroid just really didn't review that well. So it's understandable. Like when you look at the numbers, what's happening here, I think, to be honest with you, they're going to be fine. And they're going to
Yeah.
be fine, ironically enough, because Xbox has a lot of games to publish this year and on their slate, as well
Yeah.
as we've got Grand Theft Auto. So it's funny that I think both Switch and I think PlayStation will benefit because of Xbox and their lineup. And I think they'll be fine. But I do think we need to be really serious about the price sensitivity of consumers, especially taking into consideration these chips that I know that we keep talking about, and the scarcity. In fact, PlayStation 5 just announced this week that they were stockpiling all of these RAM chips so they can
Oh,
avoid price increases, hopefully,
that's
in the
cool.
future. So that was cool. But what do you think? I mean, am,
I,
am I off base?
well,
Or
no, you know, I guess maybe I'm still, staggered from the COVID scarcity of consoles. And so when I go into a Target or a Walmart and I look in their console section, I see like literally 50 Switch 2s. I wonder, like, is something going on here? Because I expect them to be completely selling these things all the time. And I know, like, of course, we've talked about it. Like, it could be that they just have actual supply of these things. But I think it's kind of interesting that it does, at least from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like they're flying off the shelves like a PS5 or any of these other systems that I think were so hard to obtain. So I don't know if there's just I don't think there is just like a grab for this system, and it just makes sense. Like, I think a lot of people, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are waking up. $500 is pretty nuts for something that essentially just has a little bit of a faster load time and like a little bit bigger of a screen. And like, if you can live with maybe a 30% load time, you are going to like stick with your Switch 1. Like, that's pretty much where I'm at. And I don't know. Like, it is weird. It's interesting that they would address it like this. Like, this thing must be selling really well in Japan then. Like, it just that's where they're getting all their numbers at. But yeah, I definitely am surprised at the PS5. As like you just said too, that thing doesn't have very many games either. So I'm surprised that thing's selling like it is.
for sure.
It's just
I
in a
think
weird spot.
it is. And to be honest with you, though, as a Switch 2 owner, I can tell you, wait. And I
Yes.
regret buying a Switch 2 so early.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
sucky place to be.
For sure.
And you mentioned Xbox, and I can't figure out what the hell is going on there. I think with them being out of the market, obviously Sony is able to kind of run away with it, and that's one of the other reasons that the PlayStation 5 is selling so well. But according to the AMD CEO, it says the next gen Xbox could launch as soon as 2027. Now, let me tell you about what the CEO
Okay.
said, and then I want to know what your thoughts are, and I want to know if you actually would even entertain the idea
All right.
of an Xbox, because I know you have an Xbox Series S.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So this week, AMD CEO Lisa Su dropped probably what's the clearest hint we've gotten so far about the timing of the next Xbox. During AMD's quarterly earnings call, she said that a development of Microsoft's next gen Xbox built around an AMD semi custom system on chip is progressing well enough to support a launch as early as 2027. That doesn't mean Microsoft has officially announced a 2027 release date, but AMD's readiness is significant because they're the silicon partner that historically powers Xbox hardware. Most outlets are picking up the nuance here. The line from Sue suggests that hardware could be ready in 2027, not that it definitely will land in that year, but it's the strongest timeline that we've seen so far, especially compared to the older leaks that pointed to a 2028 release window, especially because we just talked about how the PS5 could be a 2028. There are also reports that this next Xbox could lean into the hybrid console PC experience, possibly even running Windows and supporting a broader range of PC features on top of classic console gaming. It's expected to be positioned as a premium high-end machine rather than just a simple mid-generation refresh, which sure sounds like the Steam machine, but we'll also be talking about that in a second. So all of this comes against the backdrop of declining Xbox hardware sales over the past few years, with Microsoft reporting significant revenue drops in its gaming division and pushing price increases on current consoles and services. So there's a lot riding on this next generation for Microsoft, both in terms of timing and what it offers players. So my question is, are you buying into the idea that the next Xbox could really arrive in 2027? And if it does, would you be interested in it?
Let's just say super smart play if they do get out in front of Sony. I think that is
Agreed.
They did that with the 360. Yeah, they had the jump on the PS3 for a little while, like
Yep,
a
and they
year,
had games, which is a
and they had
rarity in these
games,
console launch days.
and that is, I think, a recipe for success for Xbox. And I mean, I hope, because we had the handheld, the ROG Ally, Xbox edition or yada yada. I'm hoping they're not abandoning the OS that they're using for that, because people were very hyped on it. But to be honest, I haven't heard a peep since that thing dropped. So I'm not sure if that thing is really where it needs to be. So it kind of makes me a little nervous if they have this OS that is sort of half supported, half not supported. I would love for it to, be as smooth and seamless as the Steam Deck, because that OS is awesome, and that's Linux. And I know Windows has been, actually lately they've been catching a lot of flack for the state of Windows 11, and they're saying like, okay, we are going to focus on getting this corrected, and they're going to focus on games, and they're going to make everything great. So maybe by the time the console's ready for launch, that OS will be completely updated. I mean, again, always jumping back to a modular design. I think that would be so cool. However, with all the hardware being completely astronomical, that is a bit of a bummer, because it would have been awesome if this thing dropped and you can add new RAM to it, or whatever it might be, and RAM was still like $30 or something. And I just don't see that as being an option anymore, which bums me out. So I would entertain the idea of a new Xbox, though. I mean, the Series S, I loved it. I loved it. And I just I've had it stashed, and been just on the PC ever since. But if something came out and let's say they dropped like a new Halo that just looks insane, I would most likely dip my toes back in. They would need a very
Interesting.
special game to drop with it as well.
That's exactly what I was going to say is, I got burned hard with this Switch 2. There was no reason to buy it so early, and I'm regretting it. I think, especially because they're so plentiful. And I've had, like you said, console scarcity mindset back in
Mhm.
the day. And now that it's so plentiful, it's like, wow, I really could have waited. It would have been so much better. And I don't want to feel that way about this Xbox. We've gone back and forth saying, like, look, this generation has been, pretty good. We've got the 4K 60 for the most part. A lot of these games we're playing now are completely backwards compatible. So I don't even know if I need my PlayStation 5. I could have had a PlayStation 4 for a lot of these games.
Mhm.
They are really removing the impetus to upgrade. They're making it too easy to buy, and they're making it too expensive, and they're not having any exclusive games. So for me to actually be interested in this next Xbox, it's got to really do some special stuff. First off, their handheld doesn't play native Xbox games, kind of like you were referring to. They only
Mhm.
play PC games. And if this system doesn't play the past Xbox games that I have, that's a non-starter right there. If it's too expensive with all the, RAM, inflation, you can fuck yourself, because I'm not going to be in on a console that's like has problems there and it is way too expensive, even if it does all of the a million other things. I think you're right. The play to get out in advance of PlayStation 5 is really smart, but it's even more important that they're close to that Steam machine, which was
Yes.
supposed to launch this soon. Like, what's the story
Yeah.
there?
Okay, so this is a very so like out of nowhere, Valve was like, "We're gonna be super transparent about this, and we're gonna publish this blog." And the blog is titled "Steam Hardware Launch Timing and Other FAQs." So the tidbit that I want to focus on out of here is a couple paragraphs here. So when we announced these products in November, we planned on being able to share specific pricing and launch dates by now, but the memory and storage shortages you've likely heard about across the industry have rapidly increased since then. The limited availability and growing prices of these critical components mean we must revisit our exact shipping schedule and pricing, especially around Steam Machine and Steam Frame. Our goal of shipping all three products in the first half of the year has not changed, but we have work to do to land on concrete pricing and launch dates that we can confidently announce. being mindful of how quickly the circumstances around both of these things can change. We will keep you updated as much as we can as we finalize those plans as soon as possible. So, do we think this thing is actually going to be delayed in this complete nightmare scenario for Valve?
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is like a non-story of like, we can't figure out how to ship this thing just yet. We're trying to figure out how to get it at scale. Look, I think they've heard the feedback that people want it to be a console price, and they're using this as a marketing beat to say, look, it's not going to be console price. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. That's what I really read out of
Hmm.
this, and that they're going to take a little bit longer. But they're setting the stage to be like, look, this is going to be more expensive than you want it to be
Ooh.
because this is more of a PC and it's going to take a little bit longer. I think they know what Xbox is up to. They have to hit this year, but they are both forgetting. And this ties back into that Xbox thing we were just talking about, which is why I want you to read this article. Look, Steam Machine, Xbox, I don't give a shit which one has the games. And right now, none of them do. They're all third-party games on all of these consoles. Now, where are they coming out first? That might help decide, where I'm gonna buy, because clearly they're not coming out first on the Nintendo Switch. That's just getting everything years later. That's really old. I don't care about the games on there. So look, if they're going to be more expensive, if they're going to be late, I hope they're being late because they're waiting for the games. That's really where my hopes
Yeah.
go. It's because they cannot launch a piece of hardware without without games. I say that, but then Nintendo just did it and was completely fine. But Valve is an unproven thing. We're uncharted territory here,
Yeah.
and it's software that moves hardware. And it's an old adage that these business folks likely forget all the time because they don't want to pay for expensive stuff. That's why they keep firing people and replacing them with AI, and they're going to go off a cliff with that. But they have to have software to move these things. And who's got the better games? That's really what I want to
And
know. And that's where I'm
are
going to
you
go.
are you thinking like in the Steam Machine circumstance, do you think they're somehow going to lock Half-Life 3 behind like a Steam Machine only or a Steam Machine or Steam Deck only type of situation?
You're saying, would they lock it to Steam
Yes.
Machine? Oh yeah, no
Yes.
way, no way, no how. They've got Steam
Uh,
Link, they've got Steam PC, they've got Steam handheld,
I
Steam Deck.
know.
Look, any piece of software that they are going to put out, it is going to sing on the handheld. It is going to
Yeah.
look amazing on the machine. It is going to be so tailored to these devices, and it's going to be really good day one. That is my
Yeah.
prediction. There's no
Yeah.
way they would do anything just to move this. That's an interesting idea, but
Yeah.
that's against everything else that they've
I
done
know.
previously.
There's no shot of that. And I hope we get Half-Life 3 out the door when this thing comes along, and that'll be super great. That'll be awesome. But yeah, I'm with you. I think this thing is going to be delayed at least. I mean, they literally announced this thing like 2 weeks before like the RAM apocalypse happened. Like
Yeah, right.
it's crazy. I seriously cannot believe the timing on this thing, considering I definitely think we would have had a solid price of this thing by now. At least, though, I will say, I got to hand it to them. It's really cool that they wrote this blog because I love transparency. I love when these companies come out and give you at least some information, like they're in touch with the players. They know what we're asking. They had other stuff on the blog. They had, there's questions about what the Steam Machine can play and all that. But I think the big story here is really like, is this thing coming when they're saying it's going to come? And they're like trying to skirt around it, but I think we're going to see a bit of a delay, which
I agree,
sucks.
but they got to know. They obviously know that everyone's just like, how much? Like, what's your price here? Like, that's the only thing people want
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that they are definitely skirting around.
I mean, as far as I can tell, the RAM pricing and the GPU pricing and the chip, all sorts of pricing, it's not going down. Like
Yeah.
it's
So they're
literally
just
just still going up.
continually getting rammed.
Yeah,
That's what's happening
maybe.
here.
I'm hoping they're stockpiling RAM just like the PS5 or the Sony folks are doing because
Right?
it's crazy out there. So we'll see what happens. But jumping back to the Xbox, I'm hoping they launch with a game that we can play together
I
when it
agree
comes out.
because look, if your system's not selling now, what makes you think your next system's going to sell even better when you don't have exclusives?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And they were just saying how much money Sony raked in off Xbox games, and they were like, "Oh, this is great." And I'm just like, "What does Xbox have anymore?" I'm like, I'm just so confused about the state of their system at this point. And it makes me bummed because, like, I mean, we've said it before, it's just we really are losing. There's no more competition for Sony. Hoping Valve can put some pressure on Sony at least a little bit with this, but man, they're in the whole other world of hurt. So,
I
yeah.
agree. The one last thing though is when people look at the price of Game Pass, because that's the only thing Xbox has, and they look at the price of Xbox games, they're going to compare them to the Steam games. And those sales are so much better than what we see on
Mhm.
console that I really think that could help tip the scales in the Steam machines direction as well. But
For sure.
it's Valve's to lose because they're out the door first, and now if they don't f up the price, they're going to win. Xbox,
Mhm.
I just don't see them. You know, they're going to be paying catch up to Valve the same way that they are in PlayStation 5.
It also blows my mind too because even like because I bought a game this week. I bought like some super random uh binary domain. Do you remember that game?
No,
It was
the
like an
hell is that? What
it's
the
some
hell?
old game. I was like, "Oh, man," I was on Fanatical, which is just like and they sell keys on there. I'm like, "Man, the keys on this website are so cheap for Steam." Like, console needs to get on that level and, like, get
For
they
sure.
have to figure out how they can match Steam prices because that is just it is insane in just regards to how much money you can save by just going in and buying stuff on Steam sale.
I love a good cdkeys.com or Anibo or whatever site you go to. So
Mhm.
you got to find me those shady CD key or those game key sites. I'm all
Oh,
about
yeah.
that life. You got
I'm
to hook a
telling you,
brother up. Hook a brother up.
Fanatical is the way, bro. I am just like, I'm on Fanatical. They have like all these cool bundles. I don't know. I'm a believer in that one, and I find all sorts of old games. So I'll send you the link.
Yeah, please do. Please do. All right, speaking of big games and big changes, let's talk Overwatch. I know you're a super fan, and a bunch of our friends of the pod, like Brendan and Malding and everyone else, are as well. So tell me what's new.
All right. So everything Blizzard announced for Overwatch's biggest update ever. This is from Kotaku's Kenneth Shepard. Blizzard just held its second annual Overwatch Spotlight presentation, and the lengthy showcase laid out a lot of changes coming to the hero shooter this year. First thing to note, Overwatch is dropping the 2 from its title, now just being known as Overwatch. We're having a full circle the HBO Max moment on that regard. So 5 heroes are coming out February 10th when the season starts, which is that's huge. That's crazy. 5 heroes in one
Like 5 brand new ones.
5 brand new ones.
And this is
And
where I saw the cat. There's a cat that runs
there's
around
a
and shoots
cat.
people and pulls them off
Yeah.
the level.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. And then there's another 5 coming out through the remainder of 2026. Um and then this is another big one, new sub roles to make characters more distinct. So I'm going to break these down real fast. So under the tank class, now you have Bruiser. This reduces critical damage received while at critical health, gain movement speed. Initiator, staying airborne lightly heals you. Stalwart reduces knockbacks and remove and slows received damage. This is the DPS class here. You can expect sharpshooter. Critical hits reduce your movement ability cooldowns. Flanker, health packs restore more health. Specialists, eliminating an enemy briefly increases your reload speed. And recon, you detect enemies below half health through walls after damaging them. And then finally, support, you got tactician. You can gain excess ultimate charge which carries over after using your ultimate ability. Medic heals allies with your weapon, also heals you. Survivor, using a movement ability, activates passive health regeneration. Now, though, and then of course, under each subcategory, there's all the different heroes. I didn't want to list those off because that would just take freaking forever. And then so they also have the return of post match accolades. Now this is something that they removed from the first game, which I thought was so fun because you can even you it basically lines up players who do some cool stuff in the match. It has your team, it has the other team, and you can just be like, and then you like vote who did the best. And for some reason, they got rid of that in the second one. So they're returning
Hmm.
it, which is awesome. So the original Overwatch had a feature where you could vote to recognize players for their achievements, whether that be high damage output or time on an objective. Blizzard is bringing this back in a future update, but rather than just being cards like in the last game, they will show up on a new screen that will include everyone's hero models with the skin they wore during the match. So I think
Hmm.
that's a like honestly, that feature was so cool because it really felt like you're acknowledging like who kicked ass. It could be the other team too. You're just like that soldier literally melted the team. Like we have to give it up for him. And I just feel like Overwatch 2 has felt very uncompetitive. Like they made it baby's first hero shooter. And to me, all these updates make it seem like they're really trying to key it in. Like I love the subcategory hero situation that gives you those different abilities. I think it's great that they're removing the two from the name, to be honest, because that was just silly. I think it's great just being back to Overwatch and letting it. And there's some other, little updates here and there, but I think those were the major ones. And it's great. It makes me just happy that there's going to be more Overwatch, but I definitely think Marvel Rivals was eating their absolute lunch and they had to do
Oh,
something big
so
to
this is their reaction to Marvel
this is
Rivals,
their
you
I think
think?
this is their official reaction. Like I think, they brought in Stadium, great, fine. Like they made it a little bit more like Marvel's was, but now they're like, no, we're gonna take this to the next level. And that goes back to the competition situation that we had already mentioned, and it is so good. I love seeing this. But yeah, I mean, I know Dan, you don't play, but this has to at least bring a smile to your face knowing that people are out there enjoying some Overwatch.
For sure. No, I love when my buddies get fired up about it, and this is really it piques my interest. I mean, for like someone, I mean, I used to play back in the day, and I've definitely lapsed. But is this? Do you think would be player friendly enough that I could jump in, or are the subclasses going to add too much difficulty?
No, I think you can jump. You could definitely jump in. I think probably the steepest thing is always just going to be probably relearning the maps, just because it's pretty much a maze out there, and people
Yeah.
are really good. They know the
They,
angles, so just knowing that. But I think like learning the abilities, and I thought the abilities were just slight enough that it won't add like any learning curve. They're just going to be very passive and make life easier. I mean, not make it easier, but I think just it's a cool way of adding, different characteristics to these heroes, and it makes perfect sense. Like they're heroes after all, they need some special abilities, and I think this is a really cool update and really like completely unexpected because I did not know about this update. So when I saw it, I was like, "Whoa, they did do a lot." It makes me want to go and play. And I did just play like the last weekend, and we played Stadium, got absolutely rolled, which is expected. It's been a while, and but man, that game is still so good. So I'm very excited, definitely ready to jump back in there and give it my all.
nice. This sounds exciting in terms of like a good shakeup, and keep me posted on that cat because that was the craziest one I saw.
I will.
All right, nice. Next up, let's talk about Outer Worlds. Obsidian Entertainment has confirmed there are no plans for a third Outer Worlds game after the Outer Worlds 2 underperformed last year. Despite generally solid reviews, the game didn't hit sales expectations, and Obsidian has decided not to continue the series. It wasn't alone. Avowed also missed its targets, even though Microsoft still plans to continue exploring that universe, much to many players' chagrin. One clear bright spot was Grounded 2, which performed well, and it's a terrible game, but notably took far less time and money to make because it sucks. Obsidian leadership has been pretty candid about what went wrong in their eyes, saying that releasing three major games in a single year wasn't intentional and led to resource strain and burnout. Going forward, the studio wants shorter development cycles, more spacing between releases, and projects that are easier to sustain under Microsoft's insane 30% profitability expectations. So, Lord, is this Obsidian making a smart course correction for the future, or are they learning the wrong lessons here?
Well, I played Outerworlds 1. Like, after Outerworlds 2 dropped, I played the first one. I'm like, "Oh, this was Outerworlds 1." I don't know why I didn't give it, like, a fair shake because hey, Outerworlds 1 was great, but then I go and look back on Outerworlds 2 and Avowed. I mean, dropping 3 games in a year and I cannot believe the Grounded game did well. Like,
I know,
hello?
right?
When they said that, I cannot believe it because I don't know a single soul that played that game, and
It
it
has to
just
be for
looked.
children. It has to be
Yeah, it must be.
children.
So I don't know, like, so I mean, are we thinking, so what they're saying is they're gonna change how they do it. They're just gonna go back to like one game per cycle, or they're not going to go overboard. And I mean, obviously, that's the right move if they are struggling. Like multiple games is pretty crazy to handle, and I think that
Yeah.
proves it. Like
I didn't hear bad things about the second one. It's on my to-do list, so I will jump into it at some point. It's the first one was just talking heads, and so that drove me absolutely insane. Look, the pedigree of Obsidian is that it launched Fallout New Vegas, and it's really kind of never been able to reach those highs ever again. It's put some interesting stuff out there, but it hasn't been too original, and Avowed really was boring. Yeah,
Grounded
Grounded
2.
2 is so boring, it's unbelievable. And then they're letting Outer Worlds 2 go. Now, look, I hate to be a dick, but let's remember Outer Worlds 2 must have been tracking pretty poorly because it was their first $80 game. They announced it was $80, they didn't get any pre-sales, and all of a sudden they backtracked really quickly. So now you got to wonder, wow, was it the $80 price or is the fact that the game wasn't very interesting? I don't care. I just don't want the $80 price. So if Outer Worlds 2 has to die just so we don't pay $80 for a game, good riddance. I'm sorry, buddy. You had to take one for the team, and I'm glad you did. You took that bullet for us, and we're still
Yeah.
paying 70. So RIP Outer Worlds, you were good, or at least for keeping the price down. Thank you for that.
Yeah, wow, somebody had to hit one for the economics of it all.
Yep.
Like, I think, oh man, I forgot about that whole snafu, man. The $80 and like how ironic that was because it was such an anti-corporate type and capitalist game.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
I don't know,
crazy.
these things, like, the headlines write themselves with this type of thing. And no, I'm glad. Like, I'm glad we're not paying $80. And yeah, if it had to be Outer Worlds 2, then I guess it had to be Outer Worlds 2.
I know it took the bullet for us. Thank you, Outerworlds too.
Did.
You'll always remember for taking the $80
Rip.
bullet. Yeah. That's the only
Yep.
thing I think about. Look, I wish the Obsidian the best. I'm sure they've got some talent there. They just need to quit being formulaic and really get back to their
Mhm.
original roots and do something exciting rather than these. But it makes me a little concerned when they're like shorter dev cycles, and I'm like, ooh, yeah,
Oh,
because that's always led to success.
yeah.
Anyway, one last story I want to talk about real quick because we can't leave the podcast without talking about Grand Theft Auto because,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, we're all excited and super obsessed. But very small details came out this week that I want to obsess over with you. Essentially, Take Two just went out of their way to reassure players that GTA Online isn't getting shut down when GTA 6 launches later this year. On Take Two's latest earnings call, CEO Strauss Zelnick said Rockstar plans to keep supporting GTA Online as long as people keep playing, and judging by the numbers, people are. This comes alongside leaked details suggesting that GTA 6 will have its own online mode, reportedly testing 32 player lobbies, very similar to concurrent GTA Online. But even so, Take Two doesn't see that as a replacement. GTA Online just had a strong quarter, driving a 27% increase in franchise spending, helped by the new content like that ultra luxury properties that you could buy with whole Michael DLC basically that came out. They were advertising all over Christmas. And it's basically proving that a nearly 13-year-old game can still print money if the updates land. So, Lord, do you think Rockstar can actually juggle two GTA Online ecosystems at once? Or when GTA 6 Online releases, do you think like all updates will stop for the
Man.
original GTA Online?
Somebody please kill the GTA Online. It needs the Outerworlds 2 treatment. Someone.
Yeah.
Like, it is like I cannot believe this game is still who's playing this? Like, it blows my mind to hear that it's doing so well. It just it strikes me as such like, it's such an odd game to continue that I mean, if it still has life, I guess, yeah. I mean, I could see them dedicating a team to making sure GTA 5 stays afloat. I mean, man, if there's still money coming in, you better believe Rockstar will put some hands over there to bring those shark cards flowing in. But do I hope that isn't the case? Because I'm a strong believer in once the new hotness comes out, they need to shift gears and put their talents into it's the Switch 2 situation. Like, you need to put your eggs in your new games basket, please. I don't know what Rockstar has up their sleeve, but I'm hoping GTA 6 just gets their attention because obviously they've turned it into such a show, so many delays, people are clamoring for it. Like, just please make it as good as possible at this point, because if that game comes out disappointing, I'm about to riot, and I don't riot for much, and that would be one particular thing. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I think they should put all their resources into the new game. I think GTA Online has turned into a little bit of a cash grab because you have to have the best weapons and the best vehicles in the game to really compete with these other players now. It has had the benefit of updates consistently over the past 13 years, and the game shows there are a lot of options. In fact, maybe too many options, so it's a little overwhelming, especially if you're new. That game does not tell you anything to do when you first start, and there are 1,000,001 menus. It is very, very outdated. I'm not saying it isn't a great piece of artwork, because it is pretty cool, and I definitely got into it, and I own nightclubs and my missions, and I've got helicopter. Look, I've played many hours to it, but I can tell you it's a little bit crazy, and I'm looking forward to the online because I want a reset and I want something a little bit similar. So we'll see. I'm just so hyped about GTA 6, though. I can't really think anything negative. I'm sure I'll be negative after it comes out and it reveals its flaws. But for the most part, it's like, look, all of this is music to my ears. And if people are still loving GTA Online, hey, let them love it. You know, they can enjoy. Switch 1 players, enjoy your old games and your shovelware. That's really fine. I'm just talking about what I want and giving you my take. And that is, I want the new shit and I want it to be awesome. And I can't wait.
You just said 13 years of updates. Yeah. We've had enough. We're tired. We gotta get the new game.
That pretty much wraps up all the gaming news stories we've got for this week, so thank you so much for hanging out with us. And on behalf of my co-hosts Matt Lord and myself, Dan Whitehill, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and as always, good playing with you.
Good playing with you.